Have you ever been to a wedding where the flowers alone cost more than your first car? You know the one. The venue that looked like a European castle, the five-course dinner, the live band, and the DJ. The custom wedding cake that required its own security guard. And you sat there thinking, how on earth are they paying for all of this? My name is Elon, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and the completely insane decisions people make with it. And today we're going to talk about the $50,000 wedding, how it became normal, who's actually paying for it, and why so many couples are starting their lives together completely broke. Let's start with the numbers, because when I tell people what the average American wedding actually costs, they usually think I'm making it up. The average American wedding now costs between $30,000 and $35,000. But that's the average, which means millions of couples are spending $50,000, $75,000, or even $100,000 on a single day. One single day. Let that sink in for a second. To put that in perspective, the median household income in America is around $74,000. That means the average couple is spending nearly half of what most families earn in an entire year on flowers, food, and a DJ who will absolutely play the Macarena whether you asked him to or not. And these aren't destination weddings for millionaires. These are regular people, teachers, nurses, warehouse workers, and office employees throwing parties that would make a Saudi prince raise an eyebrow. So how are they doing it? Let's break down the 5 most common ways regular people are funding these financial catastrophes. I mean, celebrations of love. Number 1, credit cards. Lots and lots of credit cards. About 45% of couples put at least part of their wedding on a credit card, and not the pay-it-off-next-month kind of credit card use. We're talking carrying a balance for months, sometimes years, at 20, 25, even 29% interest. Let me do the math for you. If you put $15,000 on a credit card at 24% APR and make minimum payments, you'll be paying that wedding off for over 10 years. And you'll pay almost double what you borrowed. Your DJ will be a distant memory. Your marriage might look completely different, but that credit card bill, it'll still be right there every single month. Number 2, parental money. Also known as the wedding industrial complex's favorite ATM machine. About 68% of couples receive some financial help from parents for their wedding. The average parental contribution is around $12,000. But here's what's interesting. That number is often given with strings attached. Number 3, personal loans. Because apparently a 20-year mortgage wasn't enough debt for one lifetime, personal loan applications for weddings have increased by over 40% in the past 5 years. Couples are taking out $10,000 to $25,000 personal loans specifically to fund their wedding, and they're paying 10 to 18% interest for the privilege. Number 4, the GoFundMe wedding. Yes, this is a real thing that real people are actually doing. I'm not judging. Okay, I'm judging a little, but crowdfunding a wedding is the logical endpoint of a culture that has decided that a spectacular wedding is a fundamental human right, regardless of what it costs. Number 5, home equity loans. The most terrifying option on this list. Some couples are actually taking out home equity lines of credit to pay for their weddings. They are borrowing against the roof over their heads to pay for a DJ and a chocolate fountain. But here's the real question. Why? Why are people doing this to themselves? Why has the American wedding become a competition to see who can spend the most money on a single afternoon? The answer is a perfect storm of social media, the wedding industry, and something very deeply human, the desire to feel special on one of the most important days of your life. Let's talk about Instagram for a second. Because Instagram didn't just change how we share weddings, It fundamentally changed what weddings are supposed to look like. Before Instagram, a wedding was something you attended, experienced, and remembered. After Instagram, a wedding is something you produce, curate, and distribute for public consumption and approval. The number of photos in a modern wedding package has gone from around 100 photos 2 decades ago to 1,000 to 2,000 photos today. Because every moment needs to be documented. Every detail needs to be captured. The floral arrangement, the table settings, the custom napkins, the bathroom sign. And the wedding industry absolutely loves Instagram. Because Instagram created an entirely new category of must-have services. Photo booths, drone footage, LED dance floors, neon signs with your initials, custom cocktail menus, sparkler exits, flower walls just for Instagram photos. Each of these is now considered standard, but it goes even deeper than Instagram. There's a psychological mechanism at work here called the wedding premium. The simple fact that adding the word wedding to any product or service immediately doubles or triples its cost. A white limousine for a corporate event costs around $400. The exact same white limousine, described as a wedding limousine, costs $800 to $1,200. A 3-tier cake from a bakery costs $200. Tell the baker it's for a wedding, and suddenly that exact same cake becomes $600 to $1,200. Welcome to the wedding tax. The industry knows that people in wedding planning mode lose their normal financial judgment. They're emotionally invested. They don't want to feel like they're being cheap on the most important day of their lives. And vendors know exactly how to exploit that vulnerability. There's also the comparison trap. The average engaged couple attends 4 to 6 weddings before their own, and every one of those weddings raises the bar for what theirs needs to look like. Now let's run the actual numbers on a $50,000 wedding, because I want you to understand what this decision really costs, not just today, but for the next 20 years. Imagine a couple who takes out a $20,000 personal loan at 14% interest to cover part of their wedding costs. Their monthly payment is around $465 a month for 5 years. They'll pay back over $27,900 total. That's $7,900 in interest alone. For a party. A really beautiful party, I'm sure, but a party. But here's what really keeps me up at night. That $27,900 they're paying for a loan over 5 years? If they had invested that money in an index fund instead, at a historical 8% annual return, they'd have over $41,000 in 5 years. And over 30 years, that $27,900 invested, instead of spent on wedding debt, would grow to over $280,000. That's a retirement account, a college fund, a house down payment, all traded for 1 day of flowers and champagne. And what happens after the wedding? Because this is the part nobody talks about at the engagement party. Studies show that couples who start their marriage in significant debt report higher levels of financial stress, more frequent arguments about money, and measurably lower marital satisfaction. The leading cause of divorce in America is financial stress, which means, ironically, that $50,000 wedding designed to celebrate your love might actually be putting your marriage at risk. I call it the wedding hangover. Not the fun kind, with aspirin and greasy food. The kind where you wake up on Monday morning, honeymoon over, and suddenly realize you owe more money than you've ever owed in your life. And you have nothing to show for it except 2,000 photos and some leftover wedding cake in the freezer. Now here's where I want to be clear about something. I am not saying you shouldn't have a beautiful wedding. I'm saying you should have a wedding you can actually afford. Because here's the thing. Research consistently shows that wedding size and cost have almost zero correlation with long-term marital happiness. The couples who report the highest satisfaction aren't the ones who had the most expensive weddings. There are couples who got married at a courthouse for $75 and have been happily married for 40 years. And there are couples who spent $80,000 on a wedding that ended in divorce 18 months later. The wedding isn't the marriage. It's easy to forget that when you're deep in the planning process, when every bridal magazine and every vendor and every well-meaning family member is focused entirely on one single day. So the next time someone asks why you're not having a bigger wedding, or why you chose a smaller venue, or why you didn't hire the $4,000 photographer, you can smile, nod, and think to yourself, because I'm going to use that money to actually build a life together. Because at the end of the day, nobody ever looked back on their marriage and said, I really wish the napkins at our wedding had been a more expensive shade of ivory. But plenty of people have looked back and said, I really wish we hadn't started our marriage $50,000 in debt. I'm Elon. Hit that subscribe button if you like real talk about money. And if you found this video useful, share it with someone you know who's currently planning a wedding before it's too late.